Well, thank you everybody for joining us on this lovely Tuesday evening in May. This is another episode of Meiba Tolliver's Why Network. And we're here with Meiba Tolliver, and we have a special guest visiting us from India. And it's Bhowmick, who's a production designer and long-time set designer for films, the film industry in India. And Meiba and Monica are going to be talking about set design and production design. So, Monica, can you come up?
And before Andy steps down, I've got a few frailties here. I'm hard of hearing. My eyes are sensitive to light, so I may put my dark glasses on. But I want you all to acknowledge Andy. He creates a space to support community.
Absolutely.
I see people nodding back there. You know that. You know that about him, right? For Meiba Tolliver asked why, there is no budget. There's no staff. It's Andy. He is responsible for everything, the lighting, the sound, the camera work. And when I say, Andy, I have an idea, another one. He says, oh, okay, let me hear it. And he usually says, yes.
Always.
He always, I'm sorry, he always, thank you, see how he corrects me? He's always listening. He corrects me. I won't go into all the editing and correcting that he's done to help me. However, this is, you all are the manifestation of Andy's, I call it insane generosity. And some of you all are also as insanely generous. I won't embarrass some of you all right now by calling names and having you stand, but in different aspects that you all, and I know all too well. So, Angel, come up a moment. And then I want to share something with you. In my old age, I'm becoming more attuned to the notion of be present in the present moment. Be here now. Live life in the now, not in the past, not in the future. What happened in a conversation with Angelica, Monica, Bhowmick, was I was walking around looking at her artwork. She started telling me about it, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to do the usual of sitting up here talking and us exchanging ideas. And we're going to follow you around while you talk about the artwork. And so I approached Andy, and it's like, how are we going to do this, Andy? You got the microphones here. How will we do the sound? How are we going to do this? I don't know how. I'll tell you, what I don't know fills universes. But somehow we're going to make this work, and I know that this is the right way to do it. Just tell them just a little bit about how we first met here in the bookstore.
That was now what, 10 days
Speak
back?
loud.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, we met about...
See what I mean?
Yeah. So, we met about 10 days back. I think my friend who's hosting me here, my very, very dear friend, Nidhi, I'm staying with her. And
Back
she's
here with the...
back there with the camera.
Yeah, right, okay.
So, for various reasons, we've been driving past the shop a couple of times. And every time I'd say, oh look, books and puppets, that's really interesting, we should get there. But then we just weren't managing, and then one fine day she comes back from work and she says, come, let's go. Let's just go, let's let's drive down. So we came here, we parked up, we got into the shop, and then I was looking at the puppets, and I have some plans to do some work with puppets, so that was exciting. And Melba was sitting there with Andy, and they were having some other chats of their own. And Andy would keep coming and asking me like, "Are you done? Can I, do you want to pay now?" And I'm like, no, just you carry on. I'm just going to be looking around. And then that happened once or twice, and then, and then Andy's like, okay, I don't know what's with her. She's just like looking around. And then Melba calls me, and then we got chatting, and she's like, "So what do you do, and where you from, and and all of that." And then before I know it, she'd sign me up for this. So that's exactly how it happened. And then my wonderful friend and host, Nidhi, she's another blessing. So she's like, listen, why don't we also take your paintings there? I'm like, but this is about set design and all of that. No. It'll be good. It'll go with the flow. Let's go with the flow. So that's it. That's how all this has happened.
Okay, so that's how we came to go with the flow. I said I wasn't going to acknowledge people individually, but Lynnie Godfrey, I have to acknowledge you. I'm not going to say anything about you.
Everybody turning around now.
Or Carl Lee, but people will find out as this momentum continues. Also, Suresh Sharma, who I'm not going to embarrass him either, but he came here from Manhattan.
All the way.
Just to meet everybody, especially the two of you, and to see what the hell is going on here. So instead of sitting here with us talking here, I want to do what occurred to me as I'll call her Angel was showing me the paintings. So let's go.
Oh.
And everybody just follow along. If you have any questions or comments or whatever, just ask them. Come. You can leave your stuff here. All right, Angel.
Yes.
Okay.
That means you're coming.
So, Deirdre, and everybody come. So, getting ready to talk from upstage, on stage, I started asking Angel about the artwork. And one of the first pieces that drew my interest was this piece. First, I was asking her, what is her practice as an artist? Does she paint at a particular time? Does she
Just holding it up for the camera.
Okay, what's her practice?
That's the one.
Okay, so repeat the story that you told me about this.
So this was one of the, so I've been here for about 2 months now, and this was one of the first works that happened. And how it came about was when I was getting ready to come here, I would keep calling up Nidhi and I'd be like, so what do I bring with me? Like, do I need woolens? How cold is it? What kind of weather? And she'd be like, oh, no, it's really warm. Like, look, I'm driving to work and the sun's out and it's so hot. It's almost like Indian summers. And I'm like, huh? That doesn't sound right. It can't be like Indian summers. So it's really warm. Just don't worry about anything. So I just arrived with like a cardigan or something like that. And then from the day I landed, from the time she picked me up from the airport, it was raining and cloudy and it was really cold. And I'm meeting friends of hers here and there and everyone's like, oh, it's so cold. I couldn't go out because it was raining and I wouldn't go out because it was cold. So I was just home, and then that's how that one happened, because it was like really overcast and kind of.
So that was the beginning. That was like the introduction. The weather was not cooperating. Okay, so then I asked you about this. I said, this painting is so, you're capturing everything. There's different kinds of trees, the fence, the lighting, the shadow, the sky, and you said this was?
So the thing is, I've never been here in spring, And spring.
Here being in this area.
Yeah, I've never
part of
been to
North
this part
America.
of the world in spring. So things look really different. Like spring in India is different. Usually your spring is similar to our winters. But I've never seen these kind of trees. I've never seen sour maple in blossom, so many dogwood. I don't know, lots of new things I've learned. So as and when I would go out with Nidhi for a walk, and she has an adorable dog, so we take him out for a walk, or at times when she wouldn't and I'd be wandering around, on my own. It's like really pretty, and I was just reacting to the surroundings. I mean, this place doesn't really exist, but yeah, somewhere this tree does, somewhere this fence does, that kind of light is what I seem to find. So the work is what I gather from my surroundings, and a little bit of fantasy probably, because it's not my world. It's like a world I've just stepped into temporarily. So that's what it is. It's just my reactions to things.
Can I ask you, what's your medium? Is it acrylic?
Yes, it's acrylic. That one's acrylic. There's a little bit of charcoal work. This one's actually a view of Nidhi's backyard. Again, all from the house. So that's charcoal and sketch pens, actually, because I also wasn't carrying my entire paraphernalia, so whatever I could find.
And you said that sometimes when you come back from these walks, things kind of coalesce, come together that you've seen.
Yeah, so basically it's, and this is something which one of my mentors in art taught me long time back, that what art is, what you take back with you, the essence of things that stay with you. So this is my take on the essence that I'm reacting to. It's not the finer details, it's not possibly the scientifically correct diagram of that plant, but it's just the essence. So it's lots of things. It's like a mental collage, like things which I keep seeing, and then I just kind of put them together and compose them and have my own little journey over there.
Now over here, I walked over here with you, and you pointed out some things about the work here.
Yeah.
Where's that? Oh, there it is there. The man who appears to be behind bars, and some of these artworks were done in India, and some were done in the United States, right?
Right. So this one, I call this the Traveler. So this is a little bit like my, as a production designer for films, what we have to do all the time is we have to get into the skin of the character. It's not always that you have been or are or even close to the character for whom you're making the world or designing the house or designing the surroundings. So somewhere in all of those journeys, I've found that you're always traveling. Even if you're not physically traveling, you're traveling. So this is a little bit like, it's like the bars which can hold you back, or the stick which is the traveler's aid, when he's walking around. So it's something like that. It's like you can also make it what you want it to be. So that's what.
But say more about connecting that with design, with.
So yeah, that's pretty much, because I've been working now in the Indian film industry for almost 25 years. So in the course of which I haven't painted very much. This is like me coming back to painting. Every time we have to do a character, do have to do a house, an office, even like landscape, even landscapes are chosen by design. For any particular character in a film, we have to do our research for it. We have to understand who that person is, where the story is going, what the surroundings are supposed to tell. So there is all of your research that goes into it. There is all of your, mental, whatever, recording, documenting, everything. But you're not going anywhere. You're still in one place. So that's like my, mind travel kind of, which is something which we're forced to do all the time, getting into the skin of some other character. So this is like somewhere residual like that.
I want to really single out somebody in the audience now who can contribute to this conversation, because she has a background in theater. in film, Lynnie Godfrey, who some of you know from this area. She was a star in the Broadway production of Beauty. She's been very involved in Arts Quest. She can talk about sets, set design, and so on, from the aspect of the performer and what difference does a set make?
You know.
You can hit me later.
You know, I just must say, no, I just have to say this. Isn't it interesting? You know, I always, with my relationship with Meiba, because she is always so very curious. Isn't she the most curious person?
Yes.
I mean, and all of these things come about. You know, I get this immediate text. You must come. You must come. You must come. And then it's set design, and I'm like, okay. But what happens is that you're so innovative, and I want to thank you right now. I think everybody should really thank her right now. It's very important. It doesn't happen unless you have someone like you. It really doesn't happen.
Okay.
Now,
All right,
now
enough.
I will start talking about sets.
Sets, right.
Okay. What's interesting about being, whether you're directing or whether you're designing the set, once you're on a film set and you've designed, say, a room for someone, okay, and you've designed it for the character, and then somehow in the casting, the character has been cast that's kind of really different from what you're thinking. What kind of adjustments do you make for that? Say, you know, the quirky kind of character where you thought this person was really a stable person. What adjustments do you make? And you always talk about being in one place, so you're not on set.
Yes.
So this is all remote.
Absolutely.
So how do you make that adjustment?
So, thankfully I've managed to troubleshoot the situation before it's actually happened. So what happens is, in films, I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar with how it works in theatre, but in films, usually we have a bunch of workshops and a lot of pre-production. We are in, as a production designer, I am in on the casting. I am in also on the look test, which is like the kind of costume and the look they're giving him or her. So that helps me bring the two things together. But sometimes I have had problems, especially not with you know, that they've suddenly cast somebody very different. That's not really happened because casting is a longer process, and you know, it kind of tends to, we all know what's going on over there. I have run into problems with costumes, like for instance, if I design a very opulent kind of set and suddenly I don't know, but my costume person has dressed the actor as a very, you know, very different from who would live in an opulent kind. So I've had those kind of things. I mean, I remember once getting the director, pointing it out and tweaking it by adding a dialogue. Like, oh, so now because someone else has come and done your interiors, you know, like add a dialogue and justify the whole thing, but no, never let it pass. Never let it pass.
What's interesting is like you say, you design a room for someone who is maybe very flamboyant, and then in comes this very conservatively dressed person in a suit. And so, you know, being on both sides of it, having been on set with someone, and you walk on the set and you kind of go, okay, now what are we going to do? You know, I mean, it is so imperative. It's such a collaboration.
Yes, true.
You know, and in theater, it is so too. I think it's a little bit more immediate in theater. I mean, because things change. You know, people change immediately. So in television, I mean, there's some people who are there at 10 o'clock, and by 12:30 they're not there anymore.
Right.
You know, so things change, and so the ability to be adjustable, to be flexible,
And I guess that's also where we all kind of take from life a little bit, because in life, it's never like, it never goes like it's scripted.
No.
So
No.
we all know how to, you know, you've just got to at least understand that, okay, something is out here, and then you go there and fix it. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's happened, and
Yeah,
You
and
know.
you get past it. You
Look at your
always,
feet.
I think what happens is that people don't realize, you see the end result, but you don't know the journey that happens in all of it, from day one, especially when you're on the very beginning of a project.
Oh,
From day one
yes.
to the execution date can be totally different. And you all have no idea. You're thinking, and in your mind you go, well, it was better the first day. It's not anything now. You're saying, oh, it's fabulous, it's fabulous. So the process of what we do for a living is I think fascinating, and workshops should be given for that.
Yes. We do a lot of
Absolutely.
workshops.
Yeah. Now,
Well,
back to
somebody, don't go too far, Lynnie. I want to point out Suresh Sharma, who I met maybe 3 years ago under very different circumstances. But since I know nothing about set design, very little about India, I called upon Suresh to help me prepare for this event. He helped me with some questions because it's like, what am I going to talk about? I've never seen an Indian film.
We must.
What's the difference? What's the difference in themes for instance, U.S. films and films made in India? He says, well, ask that. Are there differences in themes? For instance, in films that we're seeing now made in the United States, a lot of science fiction, fantasy, big productions, so on. How does that differ from the films that you're familiar with that are being made in India? Also, whether it's true that the largest film industry is in Mumbai,
Yes.
which, who knew?
Yeah. So, films are different because at some level the audiences are different, but now there are also huge overlaps because a lot, especially with Netflix, Amazon, all of these coming in, we have a lot of subtitled and dubbed content coming in from all other countries, which is also being appreciated a lot in India. But typically Indian films, I think very broadly could be put into two genres. One is which is very gritty and close to reality, which is now, we see more of that kind of cinema now. And then there is the other kind which has all the big A-lister superstars, and it's a lot of fantasy oriented, and our protagonists are like, we don't need a Superman or a Spider-Man or a Batman because our protagonists are almost like that. They can do anything. They can sing around trees, they can jump from moving trains, they can do anything. So there are these broadly, and there is the third genre, which is like the historical dramas, which is basically costumes and palaces, and a lot of India is now being represented by those films where people think when they come to India, it's all about palaces and oil lamps and flowing stoves, and so there is also that. So there's largely these three kinds of films, and that is extended into the content which we see also on Netflix and Amazon. So broadly, that's the three divisions.
All right, now for people like me who've never seen an Indian film, what recommendations would you make about what we should keep our eyes open for, or what should we look for? I know this is a very broad question, but
we've got something for everybody. So you've just got to and now things are really accessible because of all these streaming platforms that we have. But it's really up to you. If you want a murder mystery, we got that. If you want family drama, we've got that. So we are not the largest film industry with no reason. We've literally got everything going on. What we don't have very much of films set in the future. Somehow we are still living very much more in the present. We don't have very much of future film, set in the future. There is a lot of historical stuff. So it's really up to you what you're looking for. If you want something grand and epic, we've got that. And if you
any
titles,
titles?
you can just ask me whenever, hey, I feel like watching Bollywood, what should I watch? I don't know.
There's a movie's coming out.
Okay, say something about this.
Oh, that's, one of my movies should be releasing sometime in July, probably in the United States. It's a film set in Calcutta, which is a very old city of India, and It deals with old age and problems of how the old people have started living in a different world where youngsters can't, the next generation can't really relate to them. I won't tell you exactly what it's about, but it's about how to deal with people who are in a different mental space because of age and because, and how to bridge the gap. So it's called Puraton. It's in Bengali, which is a language spoken in the eastern part of India. The casting is really good, and the film is done very well in India. So if it releases, it's called Puraton.
Can you spell it?
Puratawan. So if it releases, please do watch it.
What types of sets did you build with that? I mean, is it historical? Is it present day?
For this particular film, yeah. So it's definitely set in the present day.
Okay.
So we had to do up this place where this lady is living. It's like her home. It's the home that she got married and came into, and she's lived her whole life there. Her kids have grown up, got married, they've got their own lives, and she continues to live there. So what we found was almost broken down, dilapidated, old kind of a mansion. In Calcutta had a very big jute industry. So this was like a mansion inside the jute mill, which was abandoned, and it literally had roots and creepers and trees growing through it. So we actually had to clear out the whole thing because that house was very reflective of that lady's state of mind.
Now, was this already a produced house, or was it just
It was it was a real brick and mortar construction, a real construction, but people used to live there decades back.
Yeah.
But now it was in it's completely run down, and what we loved about the house was it had a lot of trees growing with roots coming into the house, and those roots were very symbolic for this lady and her state of mind. And because she was living in the past and not being able to deal with the changing times and all of that. So in fact, the director has actually gone on to say in one of the festivals, the film's done a couple of festivals, saying that for me, if I lost my actors' dates, I might have thought of a different actor, but if I lost the dates of the location, I wouldn't have shot the film. So that location was that important to the film.
the fact that the roots are coming in, that's like a view. So what type of sets did you build for the younger people?
Oh, go ahead. You can answer that one, and then I'm gonna.
For the younger people, it was set more in
Modern time?
the younger part of Calcutta, a more corporate kind of setting, high rises, big glass doors, staying on the top floor of some penthouse kind of thing. So that it was a completely different vibe.
Yeah.
So the two worlds were very, very far removed from each other.
I do have a question. Do you go along with the scout to find the locations? Because I can only imagine that it takes time to find these places that are just ideal for the script and then also for your design work. Do you accompany the location scout sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. So basically, when a film is greenlit and it's about to start happening, the first person that comes on board typically is usually the writer, because they come with the script. And then there's the director, then there's me, the production designer, and the cameraman, and then the rest of the crew follows. So yes, I am one of the earliest people, sometimes even before the director, to go and look at locations, to shortlist the locations. And in one of the films, I remember just finding the location. It's a film on Netflix, if you want to watch it. It's called Newton, easy for you to remember. It took me a year to find the location, and we literally looked from northwestern India down to southern India and a lot of eastern India to find. So this was a set, like a set built from scratch in a forest. And so we were actually just looking for the right kind of forest, because the foliage had to look right, and the whole story is shot over one day. But we've shot it over a month. So for one whole month, we were just living one day, So we had to be careful of how the sun moves, and then every day at certain times we would be filming the same scene. and all of that stuff. So yeah, finding locations is a very, very big part of my work.
Now, if you are in any way involved in storytelling, even news is storytelling, what you realize is good stories have a beginning, a middle, that may not be all that great, and an end. And if you're lucky, you have some support from Jerry Wexler, who was a support person for myself and another writer, me working on a memoir, meeting Sundays at a Barnes & Noble, and having somebody point out to you what kind of a beginning have you decided on? What is your beginning? Now, and that's true of you and all of us in how it is that you get into what it is you do. Lynnie, an only child of two doting parents, it seems to me, always knew she wanted to be a performer. From high school, Hunter College, studying with Lloyd Richards, so on and so forth. Angel
Only
started.
child of doting parents.
Okay, there you go. But I want you to say a little bit about your beginnings. How did you begin? How did you come into doing what you're doing?
I think you always remain a child.
You have to.
You
It's the best thing.
very childlike. As a child, I always had a great imagination. I would take just the simplest scenario and pretend that and make it into a concert. Make it into a movie. Watching movies, watching the Nicholas Brothers, watching Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers musically.
Oh.
Yes. And thinking, well, if I study, I could do that. As a child, so, you're childlike, and I think as an adult, for us to achieve what we have to achieve as actors, and also as a design artist, is that you can't lose that childlike quality, because you can't allow yourself to judge yourself. You really must not care how foolish other people may think you look, because you must be as genuine as you possibly can be. And then when you are that, the hardest audience for you to please are children.
Yes.
Because they immediately, if they fall in love with you, you've done it right. If they boo you and you're a wicked character, you've done it right. But if they boo you and you're a good character, you need to go home. But go ahead.
You started out as a painting and then into design.
So
correct?
painting was my thing before I even realized that people have a thing. I was all of 4 years old when I remember it was my birthday, and my parents had some 20 odd children over, and I don't remember the children, I don't remember what we did, but I distinctly remember each one of them had bought me a box of paint.
Oh, wow.
So I think by then they already knew that I was fond of painting or something, and I remember my earliest teacher was my father. He's the one who taught me how to paint, and I think I inherited aesthetics from my mother because she's got a very good eye for colors. So that was a thing before I even knew it was a thing till I got till college, and then that's when you begin wondering what you're going to do with life. And I wanted to become a doctor because there you could, to study medical in India, you can draw. You have to draw plants and animals, and so I was it was always about drawing, So somewhere along the line, and that's where clarity happened, and I realized that art is where I want to get into. I started painting, and I did my master's in film studies because photography was interesting for me and all of that. But even at that point of time, I did not know or see myself becoming a production designer for cinema. When that happened the first time was a little bit by default. And I realized that that's giving me a scope to take my art up, like, it goes up a few notches, because I was not then just working on a 2-dimensional sheet of paper. For me, gradually every set started becoming virtually like my own installation. So walking, to be able to create a space which has a context to it, which has to be relevant in a certain way. You're going to be walking through it, it has to be functional. All of that started seeming extremely challenging for me. So for a person who was just painting, I was literally building houses, and I built a hospital, and I built I don't know what all. And I'm like, where did I suddenly start building things from? But it was not just about the architecture of it, it was the finer nuances which was demanded by the script, and which was for the actors, for them to be able to play out whatever they needed to play out. That really got me excited for a very, very long time. I am still excited, but it also now has started tiring me a little. So I want to go back. So this is my attempt to going back to my art, which involves just me, more of me, and less of working with like 100 people under me and getting things going and all of that. So pretty much that's how it began, this whole journey in art. But to carry forward from what she's saying, that childlike enthusiasm and that wide-eyed wonder, that also came to me pretty much out of the blue, because one of the first films I did was actually a German production that was filming in India. And I remember them, it was an Indian story set in India, but it was a German director and a German crew. The film is called Shadows of Time, you can look it up. And that was the first time I realized that when a third person is looking at you and your world, there is so much in it which can be actually researched, documented, defined, categorized, labeled, and then presented. That is a skill set which I learned along the way, and that is what has helped me in all my films, because suddenly you don't want to take anything for granted. I remember the director telling me, so Monica, she'll be holding a basket and she'll be going. And I'm like, okay, so but what kind of a basket? So he's like, a basket. I'm like, this is India. We have like over 1,000 kinds of baskets. What do you mean by a basket? So he's like, but it's just a cane round thing. I said, cane round is many kinds of cane. Eastern India has a different kind of cane, Northern India, Southern India is completely different. So then I started actually studying baskets in India, and I started showing him samples. And that was the beginning of, it was a very big eye-opener for me, because we don't look at these things, we don't observe things around us, it's of no importance to us because it's all over, it's all around. I think that eye and understanding for detail and not taking things for granted, I think that is what is now helping me. Hence I react like a tree is not a tree. A tree is very different in New Jersey and a tree is very different in New Delhi. So, that's where it's all coming from. So yes, you have to keep the child alive. I mean, that's the most precious thing.
But also
Can I ask a question? Just along the same line. So how you talked about you try to capture the essence in the artwork with something, it's not exact details. How do you then capture that essence in production design? So in production, you have to go into details. So what is it in your mind there that captures or creates the essence? Can you connect the two somehow and talk about that?
Absolutely. Slightly crass as it might sound, when it's production design, a lot of it is also dictated by the budgets.
Right.
So at some point of time, you learn to divide between the broader strokes that will show up and the insignificant details that you might just be getting into. So you really have to know, what the camera is going to be seeing, where the camera is going to look. I had an assistant. We were filming something about Lord Mountbatten as the last Viceroy of British India, and I had an assistant who spent 1 month working on Lord Mountbatten's sword, because it had to be a certain way and all of that. And I kept telling him, I said, we're never going to the sword. We are not, but it has to be right. I'm like, I absolutely respect your sense of commitment if you're not going to the sword, So we are going to the chair, or when his coronation happens, we are going to all of. So somewhere we have to know our business. We have to know what the camera is going to see. We have to speak in broader strokes at times. So a part of Born Supremacy was shot in India, in Goa, and that was one of my earliest projects.
In Goa.
In Goa.
Mhm.
So that bit of Gone had a huge big car chase sequence somewhere in Goa, and the car crashes through a bridge and falls into a river, if any of you've seen the film. And so I had to set up a whole market, next to that whole bridge. And the point was that because it was Universal Studios, we couldn't work with any brands, we couldn't show anything like that. And that's where this thing about broader strokes comes in, because when people think Goa, what comes into their mind? You want the local make, the local bakes, the craft things, So it's like you have to, again, as I said, you have to understand, you have to define, you have to observe everything around you and sieve it out from there. And we do this because A, it makes our work much better, and B, it keeps our producers also happy, because that's really important, because budgets are always a constraint, and the smarter you can work with the monies, the better you get. And constraints sometimes help you work better. They just give you the thing. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, in that production design, what is it sometimes? Just one detail or a broad stroke?
A broad
Is it lighting? Is it something,
It's,
that captures prime?
It's got to do a lot with working with your team, with my director of photography. I need to know what lens he's using. If he's going to be filming on a tele lens and you're in focus, everything around you is out of focus, I don't need to worry about that. I don't want to prepare for a wide angle lens when the whole film that whole scene is going to happen with a tele lens. So, those things are really important. Yes, lighting is important. Am I lighting the backdrop? Are my things going to be seen? If they're not, then it's wasted. Then I'm not designing it right, because I have to design for the context, for the script, but primarily for the camera. So,
Well, I see out of the corner of my eye, Lynnie nodding about the details.
Well, I think, specifics are very important.
Mhm.
I remember, jeez. I remember
Yes, just after this. We'll
I'll
go
make it
back and
short.
sit
I'll
down.
make it short. I remember.
You want a chair? We can grab, Regina, can you grab Susie a chair?
Go ahead.
There was I had an opportunity to work with a man named Norman Lear. And he was casting the sequel to All in the Family, and he was casting the woman who would be like Archie Bunker's wife. And
It's for Susie. It's for Susie.
And,
It's for Susie.
And I remember during the audition process, Norman said, well, she's a religious woman. I said, okay, what religion? And he said, well, she's just religious. And I said, no. In the black culture, we have many churches. So is she Baptist? Is she Methodist? Is she Presbyterian? Is she Pentecostal? What is he? And at that point in time, I didn't know him very well. I went on to be cast in this series, but it was that question, he said later, that got me the job. Not necessarily the acting, because he said, she's cute and I hope she can act, but but she's smart. And because I wanted very specifically to play this woman who was my mother. I wanted to play my mother, and I wanted her to be Pentecostal.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that. It set a whole nother mood to where the episodes were filmed, what was going on. We had a whole episode about church and what young people thought about church and what my character thought about church. So specifically, when you start, on small little things, you don't know how important they are ultimately down the road, because they evolve into a lot of things. So when she was talking about the specifics of how she did, I was nodding my head, because as I'm working on a project in which I have to speak in I speak in English, I speak American, but I have an accent of another language, and I'm not going to say what. But it's very specific when I study it at night, how I say things and consistently say them, because the response that other people give me. So everything is in our business is very, very. You may think it's glossed over, like you said. The shot. You may do this one shot, And that means I'm only looking at you. So there's the camera with you. But everything behind you now is in blur. But specifically, you have been very careful putting everything, even though it's not in that one shot. Because then your cinematographer may one day think, well, I think I'll just, do a whole shot here and bring it all in. So all of it has to be that specific when you're working in it, in all mediums, whether it is in film, whether it is in theater. I find a lot of people like to sit in the orchestra and in theater, but in musical theater, I'll just give you a hint. It's usually done in layers. So if you sit in the front of the balcony, the front row of the balcony, best seat in the house, you can see what the choreographer was thinking about as he was doing all of these things. You can see what the director was doing. You can see the set, and as it's evolving every which way. So, you then are looking at the whole picture, like when she said, when you're either doing this or you're doing that, you'll be able to see everything, that all of that trouble, 2 minutes of film can take you 2 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
So all of that is the specifics.
Well, to get back to Jerry's coaching, again, to the other woman and myself as storytellers, and me coming from news, we could understand when he was coaching us in the details. It's not just a tree, it's not just a bird, it's not just a block, it is specifics. Jerry, say a bit about that.
Well, actually, I wanted to ask a question.
Okay, whatever.
So you're talking about the director, or maybe asking not knowing what kind of basket, but what about the scriptwriter? I mean, do you collaborate with the scriptwriter, or does the director take the script and then step away from it and do whatever the director wants to do, or do you give feedback? So your specificity about what you design is going to be like right there, you can see it. But the scriptwriter might not have envisioned those particulars. So would the scriptwriter say, no, that's not what I meant? Or do you suggest that the director tell the scriptwriter that this would be better? Or how does all that whole collaboration work?
So that's a really interesting question, because we've had these situations, especially when scriptwriters come on location scouts with us. It really throws everybody off, because see, when it's a film crew, everybody's a creative person and everybody has their own vision. Everybody's seeing the film in their heads, and yet everybody has to work with each other. So that does become quite challenging at times, but usually the way it works in India, at least, is for us, we take our creative briefs from the director. Of course, we talk to the scriptwriter and all of that, but it's basically the director who is the overall in charge of the vision that he's trying to push forward. So how it would work is, a script would come to me and I would go through the script and get back with a preliminary kind of vision of how I'm looking at the film in my head to the director without even him giving me a brief. Because the thing is, sometimes too much briefing doesn't help me imagine things the way I can, and I am the production designer, he is not. He's the director, so he can do other things like direct the actors, do lots of other things. How they're going to, what's their edit points, how they'll stitch it together. But when it comes to production design, I would rather that I come to you with my vision and then you tell me what you're thinking, and then I will help you amplify what's in your mind after doing a fact check of everything. Like somewhere if I feel that, but this is not like religion. I had a director who I was filming in Morocco, and we were actually cheating a fort in Morocco for a fort in Jhansi, which is central India, and which is a very Hindu area. So the director, who was not Indian, actually told me, so here, we'll have gunfires here and the horses will come charging from here and there can be a Buddha here. And I'm like, why can there be a Buddha here? Because we can have a Buddha here. I'm like, well, why should we have a Buddha here? Like, you know, so that was like, so then you explain, then you do the whole basket thing. You come out and you lay it all out for them. And that's fair, because if I'm filming another country in another country and all of that, someone will have to do it for me. So yes, we do meet with the script writer, but that's at a very, very initial stage. There has also been another instance of where you are filming a book, you know, when the book's been written and then it's being made into the film. So I have actually been advised by the writer of the book and the director to don't read the book, read the script. Don't, because you know, that's a different piece of art. This is a different medium. So that has also happened. I have gone and read the book on the sly to see what background information I can gather. Sometimes it's helped, and sometimes it's like, where are you getting this from? You know, so it works both ways. So yeah, so a script writer, my interactions are at an extremely preliminary level, but when we go into soft prep, it's basically with the director.
So Angelica, in other words, stay in your lane, right?
Let me just segue from what was said about collaboration and detail to something that I observed in interviewing Ann Roth, who is a costume designer in our area, who's won about 3 Academy Awards. And I wrote this piece for the Lower Mount Bethel Township newsletter. And here's something that ties in with what you're saying. Going way back, Roth built a reputation for creative collaboration, someone working to get things right, down to the smallest details. In the eyes of one admirer, her remarkable use of costumes to amplify a writer or director's vision of character makes her, quote, as much a storyteller as the writer, unquote. And the woman clearly enjoys a good story. Take, for example, this one about a bit of character clothing she created for Walter Matthau, playing Oscar, the Slav roommate of Art Carney's neat Nick Felix in the 1965 Broadway debut of The Odd Couple. Director Mike Nichols took one look at Matthau, clad only in a pair of dingy boxer shorts, garb no actor had ever appeared in on stage before. Quote, is that his costume? Unquote, Nichols wondered. Yes, it is, Roth replied. Their laughter over underwear marked the birth of a long, humor-filled friendship and 13 movies together. Quote, a day does not go by that I don't think of Mike, unquote, she says, elaborating. Quote, I worked with directors who made me smarter. They were smart, and you had to keep up, unquote.
That's true. That's true.
She was, I called and invited her to be here, and I reached her on the phone, she says, I'm on set. She's 93. And she says, I won't be getting back to the area until very late. I said, well, maybe we might still be here, but try to come if you can. So, anybody want to add anything more?
It's just, it's uber intelligence, you know, and in embodiology, we call it collaborative competition.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that you do better makes me better.
Mm-hmm.
Not in spite of, but because of. So we all get better together.
Mm-hmm.
And these are what make projects a delight to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Once upon a time, I had a career in filmmaking also, in front and behind the camera. And it's always such a joy when you are not in constant conflict with people about ideas. Once we understand that we are collaborating together, it's such a joy. It makes the projects fun. I'm sure anybody who's even worked in corporate, or you know, if you have your own business, that delivering joy to the people that you're around and making something that we can all be proud of and responsible for is just so awesome.
Best way to work.
Yeah.
Best way to work. Absolutely.
And one note, that I've learned too is practice, and I want to just have Regina Marinelli, who is a business owner and a mom and a tax collector for our township, learning piano. And she said something, she's shy, but anyway, she said something very moving and very inspiring about the difference when she was learning piano at 7.
Yeah.
Regina, speak on that.
Okay. So I'm 60.
Loud, you know I
I'm
can't hear.
66 years old and I decided to take piano lessons. Now I did take lessons when I was young, and the difference is I didn't practice when I was young, and now I practice twice a day, and I love it. It's a great experience. And I also don't think I knew anything about music as a 7-year-old to like really appreciate it, you know, and now I, you know, love music. I go to hear music whenever I can, and I admire, you know, the talent, and I just failed at so many things that I tried to learn as an adult, like belly dancing, painting, you know, not that I stuck with it very long, but I thought there must be something, right? Like
Well, you're a
something.
tax collector, so you must do something.
Well, and I have a business, but I mean, creative.
Yes.
Creative.
Right.
I thought, and something that you're learning, you know, as you're older.
Yeah, more appreciative.
Yeah, I'm a failed gardener, even though my business is related to agriculture, but, and I, you know, I've only been a couple months, but I can memorize some pieces already, and it's all because I practice.
Yeah.
You know, I really do. So.
When you like to do something though, you know, I think as children, sometimes we are put into situations where our parents want us to be, you know, musicians or, you know, I mean, but as an adult, you choose, you make a choice. You made many choices, and you say you failed, but I don't think you failed. I think those choices led you to the choice that you're the most successful in.
Exactly.
You know, because you have to make choices. You have to go through a process. Life is a process.
I wish I would have, you know, started when like the idea first like entered into my head a couple of years ago. Like, I kind of like sat on this idea. You know, it's like, okay, now I have arthritic hands, and I finally decided to go play the piano.
Which will help your arthritic hands because of the simple
Yes, it
fact,
will.
because of all of the placement all the time, you know. So, I mean, but everything is timing, you know, life is such a gift. Yeah, getting older, someone said to me, oh boy, it doesn't get any better, it gets worse from here. I went,
Oh,
but
no.
are we not blessed to be here? Isn't it a gift that, you know, I've lost so many friends in the business in the last year. And it's heartbreaking. And you think when you're younger, you're always going to have all your friends. We're going to all retire together. We're going to all sit in rocking chairs together, talking about all the crap that we did, how we stole rolls from somebody, how we slashed somebody's tire, or whatever it is that we did. And then one by one, the bodies break down, you know, the plagues come in, all of this, and then you realize, getting to a point where you're still here, and you're still functioning, and you can still do the things. I started singing when I was 3. So, you know, you can still do all those things. You know, it's such a blessing to be here. And it's a blessing to have friends later in life.
Okay.
Excuse me, on the note that you were speaking about, I saw an interview this morning with Dick Van Dyke.
Yes, who's almost 100. Yeah, yeah.
And that's what he was discussing.
Yeah.
My friends are gone, you know, but he has his grandchildren
Yes.
and everything else like that. He still looks fabulous, but that's what he was talking about. Our friends are gone.
No, you know, you have great memories. The thing is to make, if we knew when we were younger how important our memories were,
Yeah.
it was to make great memories with our friends. You know, I think about all the memories, and I laugh and of course cry a little bit of the people who have gone away. And I try to make memories now. You know, as I go and I go, good, that was a good day. I'll remember that. Yeah, you know, it's important. It's important.
It is.
Just
Yeah.
like this day.
Yes,
Just like this day.
This day. It's a good day.
Well, we invite you all to look at the art, to ask Angel any questions you have about it. It's for sale. This is not a sales pitch, but maybe the memories or the explanation or something will click with you. In the meantime, please give yourselves a wonderful round of applause, all of you, because without you, there would be no wide network. You all are like, all of us, we ask why? We're curious, we want to know more, and so here we are. Thank you.
You have to say Andy.
Of course, we do, because Andy makes all of this possible. Thank you all, thank you.
Now,